Yes, I'm impressed with Daredevil Born Again after so many dumb series like WandaVision, Secret Invasion, and of course, She-Hulk, but I still have some issues with it. Let me share why this show is GOAT and why it's also the worst as hell. Starting with the Marvel logo, Tony Stark, Black Panther, and Captain America are nowhere to be seen. I think Captain America Brave New World also officially erased the Avengers we grew up with. Marvel is moving on, but I miss the old logo. Then there's the opening scene. Marvel seems to be sticking to a specific pattern of editing. You can see the same style in the Fantastic Four trailer, Thunderbolts, and Captain America Brave New World trailer. I don't know why. I found an interesting detail in this specific scene. Look at this number 468. It has an interesting story. In 1998, a Daredevil issue was mistakenly labeled as 468 on the cover. Even though it was actually issue 68, the correct issue number should have been number 448. Considering the legacy numbering of the series, this misnumbering has caused some confusion among collectors and readers. So maybe it's a symbolic reference to that comic. Coming back to the topic, Netflix's Daredevil Season 1 started with an emotional scene that instantly connected us to Matt Murdock. Then came the first fight sequence, which was brutal and raw. It set the tone for what Daredevil would be grounded. Now, with Born Again, Disney surprisingly nailed that formula again. The first fight sequence literally blew my mind. I went in with low expectations, fearing it might turn out like Secret Invasion, but within the first 10 minutes, I knew this was different and the tension was real. Then came the real shock, Foggy's death. I didn't expect that at all. It immediately raised the stakes and made the entire opening feel even more impactful. But after these scenes, the real problems start. The background music tries to build tension. The story itself doesn't deliver. Instead, Disney brings in its signature love story formula. Karen breaks up with Matt, and barely 8 minutes later, another romance starts blooming. It feels rushed and lazy, as if they're just inserting romance for the sake of it, rather than letting relationships develop naturally. Throughout the episode, only a few characters actually drive the plot, mainly Matt and Fisk. And speaking of Fisk, his characterization feels off. His introduction starts with danger signs, making us expect the ruthless villain we know. But instead, he talks about wanting to do good for the people. It's a strange shift from the terrifying crime lord we've seen before. One thing that stood out to me, though, was how Fisk resembled Donald Trump. The cap, the hand gestures, it all feels intentional. I don't know what Fisk planned, but I genuinely miss Fisk's raw villainy. He was once a force of nature, but now, he feels more like a political figure than a true antagonist. And once again, I see Marvel's usual formula at play. They always deliver strong writing in the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes, while everything in between feels like filler with lazy writing. Take Spider-Man new animated show as an example. That show followed the same structure. I can see the exact pattern here. Episode 1 starts with an incredible sequence that pulls you in instantly. Then, episode 2 ends with a last-minute twist that gives you goosebumps. But in between, the story just feels mid. It's not exactly bad, but it's clear they're stretching out the content to fill time rather than keeping the momentum going. That said, episode 2 was definitely better and more engaging than the first. I also noticed an interesting detail. Someone drew Fisk's face on a wall, but it had the sides. This could be foreshadowing that Fisk has a much bigger plan than he's letting on. Then there's the issue of the CGI. It's just bad. The makers of this show seem to have a very childish understanding of what made Netflix's Daredevil so great. Instead of relying on practical stunts and raw, grounded action, they went all in on CGI, completely missing the essence of the character. Right from the beginning, the CGI-heavy parkour scene felt off. It set the stage for a massive letdown. And honestly, I have been dreading this ever since I first saw the trailer. Daredevil's fights were always about realism, but here, it feels like they just threw him into a video game cutscene. Last week, I watched interviews with Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, and the directors. At that time, everyone claimed that Daredevil Born Again was intact and still connected to the original Daredevil series. However, how do you justify eliminating 2/3 of the law firm within the first 10 minutes of the episode? Karen Page and Foggy Nelson were integral to the show, especially Foggy. His dynamic with Matt added depth, balancing out both the legal drama and the vigilante action. Charlie Cox had a well-established chemistry with these actors, making the back and forth between his lawyer persona and Daredevil identity feel organic and engaging. Now, without them, the law firm feels crippled. It strips away a major part of what made the original series work. This isn't just a small change, it fundamentally alters the heart of the show. And honestly, it doesn't feel like a good decision. And it feels like Disney and Hollywood have once again injected their political agenda into entertainment, completely disregarding the desires of longtime fans. Instead of focusing on strong storytelling, compelling characters, and meaningful narratives, they continue to force divisive messaging down the audience's throats. I've been a dedicated Marvel fan for years, but I refuse to support a company that continuously disrespects its audience. But overall, the hype saves Daredevil Born Again. What do you think about this series?